while farmers plowed and seeds were laid. But the towers roared and the fields decayed. From Texas flats to the Red Rock's face, they scorched the earth. They cursed this place. Oh, the dust rolled high, the winds did cry, took my home and stained the sky. The dust rolled high, the crops all died, while the towers hummed and folks asked why. They said they'd bring that greenback round, said rain would fall, would feed the ground. But the winds grew black and dust did stay, and folks who remained were swept away. That dust buried some folks so deep. We dug 'em out where they tried to sleep. 1,600 feet, or so they say, with steam shovels clawing night and day. Oh, the dust rolled high, the winds did cry, buried my folks, no last goodbye. The dust rolled high, it passed me by, and there I stood, not knowing why. Now the cattle starved, the water turned, the orchards cracked, the forests burned. The babes fell cold with soil in lungs, and we wailed their names till grief was sung. We gathered our kids and fled out west, chased a sun that sank like the rest, left homes behind, their bones baked bare. No voice was left, just silence there. Oh, the dust rolled high, the winds did cry. Lawmen all watched, then walked on by. The dust rolled high, the towers lied, and all turned black beneath the sky.
Years of drought have deteriorated the Great Plains' tens of millions of acres. Strong winds carried this unanchored topsoil away and turned them into dust. These choking billows of death rose up and threw a black blanket of dirt over the region. At a local Methodist church in Guymon, Oklahoma, men, women, and children came together to pray for divine deliverance. They crowded the house of the Lord, with many more standing outside shoulder to shoulder in the street. It was a sight to behold. People from all paths of life, farmers, teachers, businessmen, government officials, and policemen, all together in prayers beneath the first gray clouds they'd seen in years. The town folks sang the Messiah in the dust haze, in hopes that rain would fall onto their fields, bringing much needed salvation. Out of options, and with the windows for a harvest slipping away, prayer was all they had left. However, rain would not fall. As the clouds parted hours later, remaining in place was a yellow, dust-laden fog that had lingered in the region for weeks.
Heavy winds continue lifting dry soil into the air and infecting the atmosphere. Cases of pneumonia are on the rise in dust-affected towns. Residents are advised to cover their faces, seal their homes with towels or blankets, and avoid dust exposure whenever possible. Local officials claim that the severity of these dust storms is greatly exaggerated. Some say the land isn't permanently damaged, that good soil runs 2 feet deep and the wind cannot take it all away. If good rains fall in 3 weeks, they say, a harvest will happen.
On Sunday, April 14th, heavy winds struck once again as dust engulfed the Texas and Oklahoma panhandles. Mountains of blackness, thousands of feet high, rolled across state lines with record wind speeds of troubling intensity. Rough estimates say over 300,000 tons of dust had crushed the region. In areas where visibility reached near zero, the scene was otherworldly. Winds piled up soil into dunes, up against fences and doorways, and blanketed miles of highways. Entire barns and houses were buried, with cattle choked to death as dust caked their lungs. Officials are advising people to stay indoors, stay low, stay away from windows as wind speeds climb. Protect yourselves with any covers you have, blankets, boards, anything. With winds picking up speed by the hour, there are now reports of debris crashing into homes and killing residents inside.
This letter was sent to us here at the Courier News today from Mrs. Annie Cotwell in Alt Pine Flats. It is an emotional letter, a heavy letter, and I would like to read this to you all. To the kind folks at the Courier,
I write this by lantern light, as the storm rattles the walls and the dust stacks against our door. My husband and I have farmed this land for 20 years, and never have we seen it so cruel. We lost the last harvest to drought like many others. Now the garden is buried under a dune taller than my youngest boy. We can't afford another failed harvest. But how does one plant in shifting sands? I wrote to the state office 3 years ago, back when the first dust storm hit. We sent letters, dozens of them. We never heard back. We even tried to go there ourselves once, but the police were turning folks away, wouldn't let anyone near the gate. So I'm writing to you now, because the Courier's still on the radio, still printing papers where we live. Please, help us get the word out. If there is anyone out there listening, whether in the government or those fancy men from the moon, we need help. We are hard-working folks, but even the strongest back can only bend so far. We are trying our best to stay alive, but we need more than ourselves to make it out of this. God help us all if this wind keeps blowing. Sincerely, Annie Cotwell.
Lunar observatories confirmed critical calculation errors in the 2 terraforming towers in Texas and Oklahoma. They determined these errors are behind the long drought and rising temperature that have plagued the Great Plains for years. Efforts are underway to combat the situation, but there is no simple fix. The towers cannot be shut down outright, not without triggering a sudden atmospheric collapse on a global scale. Too much of our climate now depends on this system. Even small adjustments must be carefully mapped years in advance, and any changes will ripple outwards. impacting the remaining 8 towers still operating across the globe. One misstep could send the already fragile weather into complete disarray. As you may have realized, this is no longer an American crisis. It's one facing all of humanity. And now, with science and politics both in the mix, every decision leads to more questions and more delays. Until this disaster is over, our soil will keep drifting eastward, lost to the Atlantic, one storm at a time.
Folks round these parts are used to hardship. We've lived through bad harvests, dry spells, and scorching summers. But never have we seen the very sky blot out the sun, nor the land rise up to chase us from our fields. These storms, these monsters of dust and wind, they are no mere weather spell. It is a reckoning. A sign that we, as stewards of the soil, have taken more than it had left to give. Some pin the blame on drought. Others say it is the equipment tearing up the fields too deep. And some point higher, to those towering machines on the horizon, the terraformer towers, their spires piercing heaven itself. From up high they stir the winds, and now we are at their mercy. How it started matters little now, for the consequence is here. The black clouds will not spare us or our children. The dust has crept into our bread, our water, and our very lungs. What once gave us life, now takes it back. We would do well to remember, no matter our ambitions, the earth shall always have the final say.
Hello? Hello? It's me, Simon. I'm glad to talk to you again. And wherever you are tonight, I hope you're doing well. Let's begin, shall we? Dust, huh? These recordings were from the 30s. One of them, April 14th, 1935. It was the day we realized that these terraformer towers were no miracles of science, after all. They were fragile, and we were messing with forces we barely understood, let alone try to tame. The cost? Lives lost, towns buried. And the worst part? We're still paying for it, 65 years later. The towers couldn't be shut down. So, all the smart folks said, just let it be. Let this artificial nature run its course. Let the winds exhaust themselves and the dust settle. Give it time, they said. And we believed them. Again. We hoped the land might just forgive us if we just waited long enough. But forgiveness never came. So we grabbed the land by the neck one last time. We couldn't fix what we broke, so we boxed it in. Kept the damage contained. Kept it in country before all the soil blew into the Atlantic. They spent more than 2 decades making microscopic tweaks to the towers. Just enough so that whatever freak wind that blows out from the plains would eventually find its way back home. So, here we are. More than 65 years later. Dust still splits our country in half. Back and forth it goes, from the Great Plains to the Midwest, and back again. I think at this point, we are just too tired to wonder why it's still happening.
Yellow Peak to Pine Ridge. Yellow Peak to Pine Ridge, come in.
Oh.
Over.
Hold on, people. Just give me 1 second.
Yellow Peak to Pine Ridge. Yellow Peak to Pine Ridge, come in. Over.
Go for Pine Ridge, over.
Dust watch report. I've got a nasty one clocking in at 55 miles per hour. Moving southeast. Straight for your sector. We'll be knocking on your door in about 4 hours. I'm sending the data to you in Central now. MPD has been informed. Upon impact, forward your readings to Ella Mountain. Over.
Copy that. I'll send readings to Ella Mountain upon impact. Can you confirm the southeast track? Over.
Track confirmed. Storm's heading southeast. Straight toward Pine Ridge and Center. ETA 4 hours. Looks like this one's got your name on it, Simon. Over.
Understood. Sounds like I'm in for one hell of a night. Over.
Ain't that the truth? Stay sharp, Pine Ridge. Yellow Peak out.
I'm sorry for the interruption. There was a fellow lookout north of Nevada. He's about 200 miles away as the crow flies. Alright, the dust storms. Thankfully, I didn't catch the worst of it when I was still living in Virginia. But the air always carried this yellow haze through most of my childhood. Every now and then, a bad storm would push all the way to DC. It would turn the sky black and swallow buildings whole. Some days you couldn't even see the Capitol Dome. We tried to seal up the house the best we could, but dust always found a way in, slipping through every crack. I remember having to wear a mask most days, even sleeping with it on, because by morning, there'd be this thin film of dirt on every surface. Eventually, we couldn't find any more masks in the city. The demand just outgrew the supply by miles. And we ended up using washcloths instead. the winters were worse. Every so often the dust would roll in with the snow. And what came down wasn't a kind of snow kids get excited over. It was rough, dark, and gritty. Felt like sandpaper in your hands. It cut me up more than once just messing with it. And sometimes it wasn't even snow, just brown slush falling from the sky. By morning, the fields would be coated in this half-frozen muck. And when it melted, it'd flood the gutters with this sticky, foul-smelling paste. Like the earth was trying to spit something up but couldn't quite get it out. I guess the one good thing was school was shut down for weeks whenever a storm rolled in. But that didn't last long. Eventually they found a way to beam school into our homes. Screens on every living room coffee table. But that made a bad situation worse. Because now every time a kid stopped showing up on screen, we knew the pneumonia had gotten to them. Plenty of children passed away in their sleeps. All because they couldn't understand why they had to wear these suffocating masks all day or night. I lost a few friends back then. I don't remember their names anymore. It was so long ago. But I remember how I felt. How me and my classmates would cry every time the class got just a bit smaller. The teachers held it together pretty well. You know, calm, stoic. Just like we needed them to be. But sometimes I think back and wonder if maybe they were just used to it by then. Kids died, but those teachers only ever knew us through a screen. And maybe in their minds, that made it easier to let go. Anyway, when I finally made the drive west, years later, I thought I had it all planned out. I grew up inhaling dust, living in it, scraping it out of my hair and clothes, and even when water was harder to come by than it is now, I packed up to 10 gallons and thought I was good to go, you know, that I could hack it. Halfway to Kansas, out on the 70. That was when it hit me. What I had known all my life. The haze back east, brown powder on my porch, and that dark slush in the gutters were just a taste. Just residues, leftovers. What I ran into that day was a real deal. A wall of dust rose up and swallowed the highway whole. Soon that dust climbed high enough to bury the hood of my car. Then, the world just disappeared. All I saw was just a flat plain of drifting sands, stretching into nothingness. Then came the darkness. Just me, the wind, and that god-awful hum, like the earth itself was grinding its teeth. The car started seesawing back and forth. That was when I started praying, as loud as I could, because I sure as hell didn't want to be the next poor bastard that dig out the dunes with a steam shovel. I don't know how long that lasted, but in the dark, it felt like forever. When the storm passed and I started driving again, I started praying even harder. The car started making sounds no machine should have made. It was dying, yard by yard. Every mile was a fight. Tires slipping, engine coughing, brakes barely biting. The freeway was barely visible with waves of dust just drifting like snow. And those 10 gallons of water that I was so proud of started feeling way too light, way too fast. But the further west I got, the quieter it became. By the time I got to Nevada, it was like stepping into another world. The storm gave way to empty stretches of desert and open skies. A calm so vast, it ironically made me feel uneasy. It felt like time itself had slowed to a standstill out there. But the car died on me the very first night in Nevada. I didn't know what to do. But I sure as hell wasn't about to start walking into another storm. Lucky for me, some guy picked up my distress call. Said he was out watching the moon somewhere nearby. Never even caught his name. Not yet anyway. He just assured me that he was heading my way with a tow truck. Then he signed off before I could even get a thank you out. The truck showed up eventually. 5 hours later, I was half asleep when the high beams hit my face. And there it was, a beat-up, rust-bitten, loud groaning conjuration of a tow truck emerging from the dark like it had just clawed its way out straight from hell. Doug McFarlane, the Desert Guardian. Or at least that's what he looked like to me at a moment. When he stepped out of that truck, I knew right then that this was a man the desert failed to bury, but not for lack of trying. He saved my life that night. No two ways about it. And on that long haul back to what seemingly was the only auto shop left in Nevada, we talked. Doug's story stuck with me. He got to the US back in 1980, chasing the Space Odyssey dream like so many others. Well, the trouble was, he got here just in time to watch the space program collapse. That was his sole purpose coming here. And just like that, the whole thing vanished beneath the weight of bureaucracy and budget cuts. But while others packed up and fled out west, desperate to outrun the dust like generations before them, Doug saw a different path. A business. But I guess more accurately it was survival. He spent every last dime on a battle tow truck. And to be honest, it didn't look that much different than it does now. Even Doug himself thought that he lost his damn mind. But jobs were drying up and this was the only move that made sense to him. And in this desert where dry heat cracks the land and cars don't last, Doug and that beater truck became a lifeline. He pulled folks out of ditches, dragged broken down vehicles and their occupants out of the heat and back into the land of the living. Well, next thing he knew, for the next 20 years, he and that rickety old truck answered more prayers than any divine powers. From the Great Plains, past the Rockies, and all the way into the Nevada sands. And by dumb luck, I was one of the folks lucky enough to catch a ride in that lifeboat. And old Doug ever asked for in return? Just a bit of fuel, some clean water, and maybe a few supplies. Just enough to keep himself and that truck running for one more day. I swear, that damn thing sounded like it was held together with some duct tape and prayers. Every noise made you think the wheels were about to fall clean off. But somehow it always got you to where you needed to be. Doug still drives that same old truck, you know. He doesn't run a business anymore. The name on the side is gone. We just know he's out there. Most mornings he heads out before dawn with the radio in hand, driving the freeways to the back roads, over service routes, cracked highways and bumpy dirt trails that barely qualify as roads. He keeps an eye out for busted cars on the shoulder, or worse, nose down in a ditch somewhere. He sleeps wherever he wishes when the day ends. Sometimes from up here on the mountain, I'll catch sight of his headlights drifting across the desert. Just two little lights floating through the dark, then vanish when he pulls off and calls it a night. Every now and then, usually on a Friday, I'll spot him at the general store off 95 near Fallon. Sitting out front with a cup of coffee in one hand and a pen in the other, scribbling away at letters to his daughter. Probably hundreds of them by now. But there isn't a single postal service in the world that could ever get those messages to where she is. After the last of these electees were transported to Mars, well, that was it. Earth was crowded. Normal flights. Launch bays shut down and starships stopped coming. Even the chatter between worlds grew quiet. And little by little, people stopped hearing from their loved ones up there. Sure, if you were lucky enough to already be an off-world citizen, you could just catch a lift back from the United Mars Enclave. But for folks down here, there was no more going up. And for folks up there, no more coming home. Doug's daughter, Ava, she was one of those stuck on Luna during a student exchange. Just a little girl back then, raised under the care of a guardian. She spent 20 years watching the Earth from behind a dome. And Doug, he's been stuck down here ever since, with no way to see her again. So, Here is days, out in this desert where the inky black sky made all those stars seem just right within reach. Most nights, he looks up at that moon, at those tiny points of city light scattered across the sea of tranquility, hoping that somewhere up there his little girl's looking back. Every year, like clockwork, Doug comes out to my tower, and we do our best to beam a message straight to Luna. He reads those letters he's written, each one dated, folded, sealed, and worn soft at the edges. He tells her about his days, the odd jobs he's picked up, the folks he's crossed paths with, and sometimes it's about me. And if there happened to be a woman in his story, well, he would always slip into some awkward detail. Something just don't change. "10 years back, he asked her how school was going. These days, though, he wonders what work's been like, if she's found someone special, and when he can expect grandkids. And every single time, he ends with the same promise that he'll see her again someday." When Doug reads those letters, you don't feel like the moon is all that far. Like the distance between this worn-out earth and that silver rock above, it's just a stone's throw away. We've never heard back. Not once. But we keep sending the signal. Always we hope that someone up there catches sight of our messages and maybe finds a way to pass the word along. And every year, without fail, me and a handful of folks ducks pull out from the dust, we get together. Out there, on an empty patch of desert, under the clearest sky you ever see, with headlights, lanterns, candles, and whatever light sources you can find. We have Doug spell out a message big enough to cross the void. "Happy birthday, Ava." Mile long, half a mile wide. If Ava happens to look up with some fancy telescope from Luna, she might just see it. She'll be 35 come June, probably already living her dream up there, working as a habitat system engineer, just like Doug always said she would. I wonder if she sees us, if she knows we're down here. I've never met Ava. None of us have. All we know comes from a few old photos, taken from so many years ago, curled, cracked at the edges, and the stories Doug carries like keepsakes whenever he speaks of his daughter. And out here, where possibilities still feel endless, and distance seems to cease its meaning, we hope Ava knows that in this tiny corner of space, there's a bunch of folks rooting for her, hoping she's living her dream, living free, living happy, doing something bigger and better than any of us down here ever could. And hopefully, from way up there, she knows that her father's never stopped thinking about her, not for a single day, and that not even the blackest dust storm could choke out his desire to tell her that he's still here, he's doing okay. And whenever I cross paths with Doug, I keep the same promise made all those years ago. I pop open the cooler in the back of my car and hand him an ice-cold bottle of water. Just a simple token for our protector in the desert. For 17 years now. For life. And that will be it for tonight. If you're still here, thank you, truly, for listening. It's 2 a.m. now, but I gotta stay awake for a few more hours until the dust storm gets here. I'll probably just make some coffee and watch the stars out on the catwalk for a little bit. If you're in the area, don't forget to close your windows within the hour. Once again, thank you for keeping me company. Whoever you are, wherever you are. I'll be back again. Keep your eyes on the horizon. Good night, and stay safe, my friends.